Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's video, you guys asked for it. Let's talk about wheel carriers.
Now get ready, here we go.
Alright, today's video is going to be about wheel carriers, wheel assemblies, bogies, whatever you want to call them. But we're talking about the pieces that hang underneath the roller coaster that hold all the wheels and it wraps around the track. It's a very exciting episode for me. I've wanted to do this one for a long time, honestly, but I keep telling myself, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this special thing, and I'm going to do this special thing, and that makes the episode just drag out because it takes me a long time to do things. YouTube is not my full-time job. It is the little tiny free time sliver of my life that I have. That is what I can put towards YouTube, so here I am. But unlike a lot of times, I really wanted to follow through with this. So I went on to Amazon. I'm like, you know what I need is I need a model here that I could actually hold and say this is this and this is that. So I went on to Amazon and I'm like, everyone does 3D printing. So let's go to Amazon and let's find out what type of 3D printer I need. So I went on to Amazon and I looked for 3D printers and I looked for a good sized table and a good working area and all that stuff. And I put it in my cart. I saw the price and I just pulled it right back out. And I'm like, nope, not going to do that. So I went and got some cardboard and I was sitting there and I'm like, cardboard. My viewers deserve more than cardboard. I'm obviously going to have to clear some space off of here. I'm going to need a spot for my new wheel carrier. Probably going to sit right about here. So I have to move this stuff. Okay, so I want this to be on the bigger side. So I bought a little turntable for it to sit on. We're going to set that right there. Bought a little piece of wood for it to set on right there. So I went into the garage, got some stuff, and I'm like, let's build. Time for an epic build montage. Okay, sorry about that. Got interrupted there. Had to go out and do some errands. You know how that stuff is. Lunch and normal stuff. It's the middle of the day right now. So, talking about construction. And then, let's see, where did I leave off? Oh, yeah, I built a wheel carrier. So, it was going to make the video a little bit easier. Makes sense, right? Alright, so what is this? Well, by the construction time lapse, hopefully that I've put together, this is all just made out of wood PVC and a handful of wheels that I had. So I had the 6-inch wheels, the blue ones here, but I needed to buy the road wheels. So I wanted to buy 1 foot diameter road wheels because 12 to 14 inches are where most road wheels actually fall in the roller coasters, but couldn't get anything that big in any sort of reasonable price because urethane coated aluminum wheels are pretty expensive. So actually what I did is I went down to the hardware store and I found 10-inch wheels. And then once I found 10-inch wheels, I basically scaled all the dimensions off of those wheels. So that gives me everything here. Now I plan on making a nice hanger for this so it's not just sitting on the stand the whole time. But that's a little bit down the road there. Don't think it'll be another video, but just it'll be something for that. So yeah, this is a wheel carrier. This is not modeled after any one particular manufacturer. Actually, it's a mixture of manufacturers. So the basic outline of it, the center spine down here, is like an older style B&M. So that's what style I'm most familiar with to make something like this. The left side, if you're looking at it, the left side of the wheel carrier is more of a B&M carrier. So it's got your traditional road guide and upstop, nothing's adjustable on it. The right side is closer to, I would say, most other manufacturers, like the styling I use for most of it, like Intamin is a lot of the manufacturer there, but Mac and heck, Zamperillo, like everybody is using this style now. What do I mean by that? Well, this is a fully adjustable wheel carrier on this side. So what happens here is that these little black discs that are right here that has the hardware holding them on, these black discs are eccentrics. And what they do is you see like on this side here, right there, see right here, the axle for this road wheel is just pinned. It's in the center. That's the same with the upstop wheels right here, or the guide wheels right here. It's just pinned in the middle. You can't adjust them at all. That's like an older B&M style. Like the Intamin styles now, Zamperillo, Vacoma, everybody else, that are using LSM, LIM style things, you have to put the train in an exact spot, like to the half millimeter. It's got to be right on. So they use eccentrics. See how the actual stud's actually off-centered. It's not in the center of that it's anymore. It's off to one side. So when you take the bolts out of these guys, and I've got them on both sides, I've got the eccentrics back here as well. So when you take the fasteners off right here, then you can actually rotate the eccentrics. And that's what you need to do in order for proper track alignment. Okay, still working with my new wheel carrier here. My mock track on the inside isn't quite level. I want to level it out like that. So I want to move the upstop wheel further up so there's more pressure on it. So I want to put more pressure on that upstop wheel. And then I'm going to use the eccentric to basically move the rail down. So basically, as you see, as I turn this, see the rail gets further into it. So I'm going to move it basically down like that. And now my road wheel spacing looks pretty close to even there. Not bad. Okay, I got my rail gap a little bit better, and I just got my upstop wheel adjusted a little bit more, so I'm locking the eccentric back down so it doesn't go anywhere. There we go. I kind of missed a step back there. Let's go over the basics, the absolute basics. Okay, on your wheel carrier, bogie, wheel assembly, whatever you want to call it, the industry in general, this is a wheel carrier. Nothing fancy, that's what everyone calls it. This is a wheel carrier. It means what? It means that it carries the wheels. Okay? You can call it a wheel assembly. Sure, that's not an improper term. Go for it. Outside of the industry, you say wheel assembly, people might go, huh? What? And it's like, oh, like the wheel carrier? Oh, yeah. Interchangeable with wheel carrier is the term bogie. Now, I've actually got the definition for bogie. Bogie is an English term, an undercarriage with 4 or 6 wheels pivoted beneath the end of a railroad car. Extremely relevant for this, right? This is your standard style. It's underneath the roller coaster or on top of the roller coaster. This one is set actually for an underneath style. How can you tell? Because the road wheels take the majority of the load down here.
That's what she said.
But you notice that the whole thing kind of tapers down towards the bottom. That's because there's nothing underneath it. If this were an inverted model, this center pivot hole right here where the horizontal axle shaft goes through, this center pivot hole would be just right here at the bottom. But what that would mean is that it would still look the same kind of up here, but down here at the bottom it would be much thicker because at the bottom is where it's going to mount to the coach. So this one's underslung, the other one would be an invert. Okay. General terminology. These 2 wheels are the road wheels. These 2 wheels down underneath here, these are your upstop or uplift wheels or anti-lift wheels. depending on what manufacturer you're dealing with. Honestly, I don't know all the terms from all the manufacturers, but when you talk about stuff with other people, if you can't generalize terms, then you have just built a wall between you and everybody else. So if you're one of those people, and I know there's tons out there that think that the term is absolutely, it has to be correct. Like if B&M calls it a Bogie, then you have to call it a Bogie. And if you call it B&M and you say, I have a wheel carrier, they still know exactly what you're talking about. So does every ride manufacturer. So the term is kind of like, they're a bunch of like ambiguity, they're interchangeable terms. So you have your road wheels, your guide wheels, and your upstop wheels. I'm sorry about the microphone sound as I keep turning around. It's going to do that until I can figure out something better to do, but we're going to work with it. All right. So the road wheels are just that. They sit on top of the track. Just for this demonstration, I have a piece of track. Again, scaled for this exact wheel carrier because I wanted to get stuff that I could actually go out and buy. I didn't want to buy a piece of DOM steel tubing and have it shipped from overseas, which is what most of the track is. So I just went out and bought regular pipe. Now, this is very similar to the diameter of an actual rail. This is a little bit smaller, but it's close enough to it, which matches the road wheels, the guide wheels, the upstop wheels. So we're going to put this in here. All right. The wheels kind of push it back a little bit. Let's see if I could squeeze everything back. Kind of suck it up. There we go. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So there's your road wheels, your guide wheels, your upstop wheels. The road wheels are the ones that sit vertically on the track. If you're questioning which way vertical is, it's against gravity. In this case, gravity's down, right? Because if not, this would be a really funny video if I just fell up all of a sudden. So these are your road wheels. I know some people just went, well, wait a minute, there are rides that they flip over, flying roller coaster and stuff like that. It's like, yes, that is true. Those coasters have two sets of road wheels. Instead of having a road wheel and an upstop wheel, they have upper road wheels and lower road wheels. Don't know the exact terminology on the flying coasters for that. If someone wants to chime into the comments, absolutely feel free downstairs. Go ahead and tell everybody what the bottom wheels are on a flying roller coaster. Or some of you listeners out there I know specifically have worked with X2. So like, what's Arrow call those on the bottom of the track? Because I would just call them your upper road wheels, lower road wheels. But that's me. Okay, so road wheels, guide wheels, upstop wheels. Okay, guide wheels, what do they do? Well, when you're dealing with a roller coaster, they turn, right? Just like that's on this sitting right here. Well, when the track bends to the left, it actually turns the wheel carrier to the left. And then when it turns back to the right, it turns the wheel carrier back to the right. Well, in these cases, the road wheels won't follow the track on its own. The upstop wheels don't do anything about it. So they need something to actually move the carrier from one side to the other. So that is your guide wheels. When the track tries to go this way, the wheels can't follow the track unless they push the wheel carrier along with it. And that's what causes turning and rotation. Now, most manufacturers leave the wheel carriers separated. So like on lots of LSM rides and stuff like that, where you're looking at the track here, you have like, you'll have stators and things like that sitting to the inside that you can't just go directly straight across. A lot of the older B&M stuff, there was a space underneath the train for a big connecting bar to go from one side to the other. That would mean, and this you could see this on all sorts of videos if you go behind the scenes and look at the people do like Cedar Point, backstage tours, winter chill out, things like that. What they'll do is they'll grab one set of wheel carriers like this, and they'll sit there and they'll rotate them side to side. And then when you look at the other wheel carrier on the opposite side of the train, it is also doing the same exact movements. B&M, to link the two together, they put the big bar across the back. They put them on with a rubber dampener on both sides, and then they locked them down. Now, interestingly enough, these wheel carriers, when they sit on the track like that, if I could squish my, the springs want to push the track back. I don't know, I might have to work that out for future videos, because right now I'm doing that. Anyways, try to angle it to where it's somewhat straight. Kind of hard with the camera, maybe. Maybe I'll just exaggerate it. Okay, so if this is pointing straight down the track right now, B&M actually linked those bars behind the wheel carriers at a smaller dimension than what the track was. What that means is when you put those on ever so slightly, if you watch, the wheel carrier basically just goes just slightly outwards. Not much. This is obviously way exaggerated. But the wheel carrier would turn slightly outwards, which gives you, from automotive terms, instead of them both being pointed straight at you, it gives you toe out. The toe out enables the train to basically go straight down the track and not, you see my other videos on this, and not hunt from side to side. So, on the guide wheels, we're going to go into that. The guide wheels is what does all of your I'm keeping you from hunting. What specifically in the guide wheels does that? Well, your general guide wheels are sitting inside of this guide wheel bracket right here. This guide wheel bracket free pivots all the way back and forth like that. A big misunderstanding that a lot of people have, and it's an easy misunderstanding because that makes sense. When I pull these brackets back like this, they're spring loaded. They just open right back up, right? Okay, so when I do that, people think, okay, all the movement is gone. And then when they sit on the rail, there should be a gap like that behind it, right? No, actually not. They are spring-loaded, yes, but the springs are just to keep the guide wheels in contact with the track. They are not to actually center the train left or right, although there are some manufacturers out there that put these big, beefy springs on the side that I think they did mean them to actually try to center the train. That's not what they do on 99% of them out there. They are just using for when a train is doing hard movement, hard lefts, hard rights, transitioning forces, that is just meant to keep these wheels pushed up against the track. Because if you're looking at this as the left side wheel carrier, when that train goes hard to the right, it's putting all the pressure on these wheels, and all the pressure is being forced back into the wheel carrier. Absolutely. But when it goes hard to the left, these suddenly they goes the other way, and these actually start to open a little bit. What they don't want is they don't want a gap away from the track at all. They want them to stay in contact. That way the rotation and momentum stays up in this wheel. Because if you let this wheel come to a stop, every time it touches the track, it skids. It basically does a miniature burnout. It can produce flat spots in the wheels and mess your wheels up. Absolutely. But also every time it does that, it takes a little bit of energy back out of the train too. And it goes like, messes up the energy of the train as well. So you want to keep those wheels pushed up against there. Now, all of your hunting and all of your adjustments for LSMs and everything to keep them side to side and like running dead on, DOBA, dead on balls accurate, is actually from these two right here. B&Ms, like on this side, what this guy is, this little gray guy right here, this is a bumper. And it really is nothing crazy on the inside. They're normally bolted. Granted, all this is different, so I didn't make these bolted. I just made them magnetic. Really easy to take apart and show. So all these things is just a piece of urethane rubber that sits on the inside of the bracket right here. That's it. It just sits there. And as that bracket pushes up against there, all that force goes through that urethane back into the center. All right, so part of your hunting problem is the fact that these guys eventually get compression and worn down. So they start to get thinner, which means the vehicle is allowed to do more side to side. And then they will start to get softer, which again translates to more side to side. Does that solve the hunting issues for the new B&Ms? No, it does not. They've got a different issue going on. But older stuff, you can actually solve some of your hunting and roughness by doing this. We, at the park I used to work at, we would actually take these guys off and we would put a plate behind it right here and then put these guys back on. What we did, we were a one-off park that tried doing this, and it worked great for us, but nobody else picked it up that we know of. Let me know in the comments if your park ever did this. We took these guys off and shimmed them. We put shims behind them to make sure that when the train was put on the track, the pressure on the guide wheels was even. So right now, as this guy sits on the track, you could go up to it and take the wheels, and with a little bit of effort, you could basically turn the wheels just like this. Now, the harder that wheel is pushed up against it, the more resistance it gives, which has made people think, well, you don't want a lot of resistance in a roller coaster, but that helps the coaster go straight. So yeah, actually you do want that. That's a great thing. Now, on the opposite side, we still have those exact same bumpers sitting inside of here, but other manufacturers, like I modeled this off of Intamin's, Intamin used some really hard rubber back inside of there. I know Premier does too. They use some really hard rubbers and some extra conicals to make this work. Now, there, we don't need to shim, although you can put shims behind it, and Intamin has shim packs that sit behind theirs to do that adjustment. But their shimming and adjustment is actually to get the eccentrics in the right place. You want the eccentrics almost as far away from the track as possible. That way, as your wheel wears down, you adjust the eccentric to create the firm pressure back on the inside. LSM, LIM, launch rides need extreme pressure on the sides. Most of those rides, you actually won't be able to turn the guide wheels by hand. They're gripping the rails so tight, but they've got to maintain that 1 millimeter tolerance almost all the way down that launch segment. So those things have to be precise. Now, when it comes to launch rides, the wheel carrier also has to be pointing straight ahead, straight down there on both sides. We had an LIM ride where we took a straight level, went across I don't have anything straight and level to do that with, but we went across the wheel carrier like this with a big long metal bar, and then we measured to the other side and that wheel carrier too, and then we were able to find out if the wheel carriers were pointing straight or one was off to the side. The metal bar to the track would tell us if it was straight. The metal bar to the other side would tell us if the wheel carriers were both pointing out or pointing inward if necessary. Like sometimes you will go to the track and say this side's straight, and when you eyeball it on the other side, you go, yep, that side's straight, and then when you measure across the two, the delta you couldn't see with your eyes appears as a larger measurement when you measure between the two. So it's like, oh, these are towed out. Like, oh, okay. What's that do to launch rides? If you have one pointing one way, that means you can adjust all your guides and your upstops and everything and get your pressures right and all that stuff, and you're like, yep, it's good, and you send it and it sounds awesome going one way. Then when the train comes backwards, you start hearing clicks and bangs as it runs into stuff, because those wheel carriers will shift as it goes the opposite direction, and now what was dead on balls accurate one direction is now making contact the other direction. So it's like, oh man. So a lot of time on your launch rides is spent adjusting the wheel carriers. Now the awesome part is that I was used to adjusting the hardest wheels carriers out there possible. And that was LIM wheel carriers. LIM style rides had just enough width of a credit card to go between the fins and the motors. Like, super tight, super tight. So on LSM though, LSMs have much more space. They've actually got 4 or 5 millimeters between the stators and the inside of the magnets. And so there's much more room for them to drift. So you talk with people that work on LSM rides, and even myself, I've worked on LSM rides. They are much more forgiving. You can get the wheel carriers off a little bit, it won't care because it's got that extra space to go through there and do that. Get them too far off, you're still going to smack a stator. That's no good. You ever see a backside of a stator where it's all like dark or black, or it's got a bunch of pin marks or something on it? That's where one or more of the trains was smacking that stator, and the crew was marking it, trying to figure out where is the noise, is the stator out of alignment, is the train out of alignment. They had to figure that part out. You would think if it smacked the side of one stator, it would smack all of them, but it doesn't. And then, so you look at that and say, well, that stator must be out of alignment. It's not. Because of the hunting, remember hunting side to side, because of the hunting that almost all trains do, it would come down, and as it would hunt, it would come over and smack the side of one stator and then basically rebound off and go fine the other way around. Happens coming off of curves and things like that in the general. And then you get to your upstop wheels. The upstop brackets, they don't really have any sort of rubbers on them. Intamins do. They have a little bit at the bottom. They have rubber padding, but that's because, again, this has to be adjusted. And it's same thing as the guide wheels and the road wheels on an LSM or LIM ride. They have to be adjusted to the right spot as well. The upstop bracket has to be up, pushing hard against there, and it's got to be really tight. An upstop wheel on an LIM style ride, you could almost hang off that thing before it will start to rotate. It is really tight to the track. But an interesting byproduct of LIM style rides and LSM to some extent is that the limb style rides, they will actually, like ours was inverted, right? It will actually lift the train up off the track and suck it further up into the motors. On rides where the ride is on top of it and the LIMs are underneath, I'm thinking like California, or it used to be California Screamin', it's now Incredicoaster down at Disneyland. That one had it much easier because it would basically try to suck it down into the road wheels. So the road wheels would take all the work. But inverts, they actually go upwards into the motors as they're accelerating. So if your upstops don't have enough tension on them, it will cause the whole train to lift and twist to one side until those fins are smacking stators all the way down. Now, the reason why the B&M isn't that complicated is because Intamin designed their stuff, seemingly, to deal with launch-style rides. Well, B&M wasn't doing launch-style rides. So most of their stuff was just plain Jane. It's got some bumpers for creature comfort and everything else. Doesn't have all these little finite adjustments on it. But if you look at newer B&Ms, wing coasters, stuff, things that have launches on them, you will now see the same exact stuff on there as well, because they had to get the tension right, and they have to get it straight, and they have to get it centered. So you got, that's the first thing, center it, straighten it, and then get the tension correct. The ride will run fine. Launch rides are a pain in the butt to take care of. All right, so on the upstop wheel, these little Intamin blocks here too, I did the same exact thing with them. They're removable, so if you look on the inside, you could see the spring that I used on the inside there. That just makes those come right back to it. Little magnetic holders to keep those inside there. Now in the upstops is what a lot of people hear when you're going around elements and it sounds like there's clicking, clacking, that sort of stuff. You're actually hearing the upstops bottom out. Like you won't hear it on this really because, what's the reason? Yeah, it's wood. You won't hear it on this one. But they do have this little tiny bit of a gap underneath there on both sides. B&Ms are just like metal and metal. Intamin and Vekomas, I believe, have rubber pads down inside of there. But basically, once it comes up and it goes onto its upstops, those things metal on metal contact down at the bottom as they hit. So they come down and just bang, hit there. Well, I mean, it's a relatively slow process, so it sounds more like clicking or thunking inside the train as it goes through there. When we talk about the overall safety of the wheel carrier, one of the things I always like to tell people during tours was that a lot of people worry about the wheels breaking off. They say, oh, you know, I've seen like what happens if a wheel breaks off. Like what happens if you break a guide wheel off? Like this whole weldment just comes out. It's like what happens if the same thing happens to an upstop wheel? When you actually look at the design of these things all the way around, you'll see that the base frame is shaped like a C. If I turn this in here and look at it, if we look at it towards the, it's shaped like a C, like this. And this is all one piece on the outside. So newer wheel carriers that are billet style or single weldment style, like the old B&Ms like this, they were welded all the way around in these corners. They were a bunch of plates welded together to make up this whole assembly. Newer ones are all solid one piece, and these brackets and stuff just have these big frames that simply bolt onto the sides. Heck, there's even S&S ones where they actually take the bottom half of the wheel carrier and bolt it to the top half of the wheel carrier. Not a fan of that, but that's just me. So I would tell people when we go on tours and stuff like that, I would say actually the way these things are shaped, just like this, you can actually take all the road wheels off, all the guide wheels off, all the upstop wheels off. If you wanted to put that train on the track and push it over the top and let it go down the drop, because of the way it's shaped, this will still stay on the track. The train will not come off the track. What you would have to do is you would have to break this pivot pin up here, or you would have to snap the wheel carrier in half, which for these older styles and newer styles being one solid piece, it's like, good luck. That's the reason I don't like some of those S&S styles where they bolt the two halves together right down here, because it's just like, oh yeah, so basically you break 4 bolts and that thing comes apart. It's like, ooh, I don't like that one at all. Okay, so let's talk about axle designs. Now, this model is really simple. Again, I built this just for let's point at this model. I built it to say like, oh, that's these things. Oh, that's those things. Every wheel has its own axle right there. This axle right there. This axle right there. Every wheel has its own axle. They're typically nothing super fancy. They're all a heat-treated, whether it is a giant fit bolt or a pin that goes through there. They're about 20, 30, 40 millimeters in diameter, depending on the size of the wheel. And they simply just go through on one side, and they require most of the time just a nut on it. Like this one in particular, these are just regular nuts. There's nothing to these, just because I wanted it easy to take apart. So it's just a regular nut, nothing on there. But what most of them are is nylocks. Like on my Intamin side over here, not this way, I didn't build this way, but on the Intamin style, every single one of them is a nylock insert nut. The nylock insert nut will go down and it deforms around the threads up there, so it makes it harder for it to back off. Well, Intamin likes their stuff to be on the ride at all times, so a lot of Intamin rides, the older styles especially, they would actually thread the nut down on top of there. It would be a nylock nut, you'd thread it down on top of there, and then where the threads protrude, there's actually a recessed lip right there, and you put a snap ring around the outside of that. So even if the nylock failed and it started to rotate itself back out, the snap ring would keep the nut right there, and it would prevent the axle from backing out on top of that. And that was done pretty much on everything. It was done on the wheel axles, both the road, guide, and upstop, or all three. And it was also done on your pivots too. This is the pivot axle. That's what this guy pivots on right now. So it was pivoted right there and pivoted down underneath here on these guys right here. Sorry, kind of judging by braille, but they were done the same exact way. So I was like, okay, you would have snap ring. So to take this assembly apart, if I wanted to take the road wheels and guide wheels and upstops wheels out, I have to go up and pull snap ring, and then I'd have to go through and pull the nut, and then I can pull the axle right out of it. Talk about wheel change, like they are actually quite easy. Most of the time you have wheels already built with the bearings and stuff inside of them. So all you do is you go through, you take the nut off, you pull the axle out, just like that, and you pretty much just take your wheel out. It's like, yeah, that's it. That's all there is to it. You go to your stock room, to your spare parts area, whatever you got at the ride, and you come back and you take your new wheel and you pretty much put it back in there. It's got to fit between the two dimensions, of course. That's sometimes tricky. Put your new bolt back down inside there, or new axle, or just reuse the axle if it's got NDT on it. And then you grab a new nylock nut and run it back down. And then torque these guys. And anyone who's torqued hardware on stuff knows that you would take some witness mark of some sort and mark the nut to the shaft on the bottom, so you know if the nut has turned. People say, oh, wouldn't you do the top of the bolt to the thing? It's like, nope, because this could turn, just like this. It can rotate. But the nut should not rotate. The nut's the one that's actually doing the clamping force to it. So as long as the witness mark from the nut to the bolt is on there, you're fine. Now, if you're concerned about the bolt moving for some reason, don't know why it would, but then you could put a witness mark on the head too and say, well, like, okay, that's fine. But I'll go 50-50 on that and say, well, I could line up this witness mark right there on that bolt head and loosen the nut. Bolt head never moved. Now your nut's loose. Off on a tangent? Off on a tangent, sorry. Alright, I honestly think this was a pretty good intro to wheel carriers. The designs vary, but the basic principles are all the same. Road wheels, guide wheels, upstop wheels, or if it's an invert or whatever it might be, might have a different set of wheels on the bottom. Things that do lots of harsh guiding are typically, your guide wheels are a larger diameter. Let me touch on the older style, like the old, I've worked on these a lot. The old Arrow, the old Vekoma style wheel carriers, where they were 5-wheel wheel carriers. You had 2 road wheels, 2 guide wheels, 1 upstop wheel in the center. 1. The 1 upstop wheel in the center, that's pretty much the reason, that is pretty much the source of why the SLCs are so bumpy, is because of that 1 upstop wheel right there. With having 2 wheels, I can crush these 2 wheels around the track. I can crush these wheels down, and this whole assembly won't go anywhere. It will guide. It will be just fine. With 1 upstop wheel, to allow for the quarterling in the track to go up and down, you have to leave space on the upstop, which means that the whole carriage shifts, the whole train shifts side to side as it goes around the track. Not great. Those also basically had the road wheel axles pinned in one place, no adjustment. The guide wheel axles were pinned in one place with sometimes no adjustment. It depended on the ride. The boomerangs were like a solid axle through there, centered, no adjustment. You had the wheel wear, the wheel diameter was your adjustment. Sometimes you had to play musical diameters to get everything pointed straight ahead. But the boomerangs in those older rides were very, very forgiving on diameters. They pretty much didn't care. The SLC wanted a tighter diameter because it needed a 2mm gap between the rail and the inside of the guide wheel right here, right where my fingers are. Needed a 2mm gap right there. So if you could see down there, no, you can't see it, but basically this wheel would have to be pulled away 2mm. We'll exaggerate it and just say it's got to be pulled away like this, enough for me to stick something like this in and out of there. And then that would be a properly set guide wheel. But that's also one of the reasons why those were rougher side to side, because where we're talking about getting all these things tight so they don't hunt, those older Vekoma, the SLC, the boomerang, old Arrows and stuff like that, they didn't have all these finite components on them to try to prevent that. So those old rides, they hunt like crazy. Like sometimes it's just a matter of the wheel carriers literally being tilted inward on a car where the wheels tilt inward to try to run straight. Because if you tilt the road wheels inward and you literally tilted this whole thing this way, inward towards a track like that, then the thing will just naturally want to sit in the center. That's kind of the same thing road wheels do on, or I should say wheels do on trains. They're cut uneven towards the inside to try to get the train to always center, and then when it goes around a corner they shift to one side, trying to help keep the load centered in the track. Kind of the same thing here. That's why one of the reasons like the old SLCs and stuff like that use metal elastic bushings, elasto springs up on top of there to let the whole thing ride up and down and twist towards the inside as well. But yeah, the old 5-point wheel carriers were not great. And then there's even older ones, which I'm really not going to get into. But I mean, some of your old rides, they literally just had a road wheel, a guide wheel, and then a skid underneath for the upstop. It wasn't actually a wheel, it was just a consumable insert that sat up underneath the track. In case the train went up higher, like it got air, it would simply just rub against the bottom of the track to keep it on the track. Some things like Morgan and Hypers had stuff like that, I believe it was, until they were replaced with actual wheels underneath that. I might have that part wrong. But I know there was one of those, it was Morgan, Chance, one of those rides, they used an upstop skid and then they replaced them with an upstop wheel later on. I don't remember what it was. You can correct me on it though. All right. I think that's enough for the intro to wheel carriers. Sorry it took me so long to get here, but I wanted to do something cool for the video, and now I have it. I've got a cool thing, and now it'll just sit in the background of my videos like other things. So eventually I'll get a really cool thing, and I'm going to put the swivel ring up on top. So it's literally like you're looking at the bottom side of a roller coaster. I think that'll be pretty cool. All right. If you want to email me, you can email me at ryantheridemechanic@yahoo.com. Normally pretty responsive on there. Sometimes I'm not, and sometimes I lose track of emails. And I look way down and I see ones that I haven't responded to. I apologize about that, but life happens, things go on. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. You want to see more stuff like this. I want to try to take a more proactive approach in future videos to building things, to make examples, but it does take me a long time to build things, and it's costly too. If you really want to help me out, you can actually watch another video. I have playlists on my channel where you can go down and look at those videos and just watch either some of just my regular Ryan the Ride Mechanic videos or breakdown videos or trip report videos, whatever you want to watch. And you can always suggest them to a friend too if you think somebody else would like it. If someone else is like, hey, what are those things that are underneath the roller coasters? They have those wheels on them. What are they called? It's like, here's a video for you. All right. I think that's going to do it for me. Stay off the air gates. Bye.